So I got a whole bunch of notes here, but I'm going to basically look at them very quickly, and I want to start by thanking the Minority Leader, Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins, for being a very good colleague and a very easy person to deal with. I think we've worked out a terrific working relationship between the two of us and between our staffs, and that's good for this House and it's good for the people of the state of New York. I also want to add my voice to saying thank you to Senator Klein. Senator Klein and I have known each other for quite a while. Now we're knowing each other in a different capacity, and it's, I think it underscores when you have a resolution that says Flanagan and Klein. I know he wants it to be Klein-Flanagan, but for right now it's Flanagan and Klein, so we're in a good spot. But the reality is that we are working together on behalf of the people of this state. So today represents an opportunity for dialogue, and it represents an opportunity just overall for the budget process. Senator Stewart-Cousins had lamented the fact that there has been less disclosure and less transparency, and I would respectfully offer that, in my recollection, that this year there were more hours spent in total on public, and I repeat, public budget hearings than perhaps at any time in the past, upwards of 100 hours, and a lot of our colleagues who attended those hearings know that there was extraordinary input on so many different levels, whether it was private sector, public sector, not-for-profits, municipal governments, all things like that. So that was part one. Today is part two. Today is our one House budget resolution. Certainly the Senate Democrats have their priorities. Respect those. We agree where we can, disagree where we don't. Certainly look forward to working very closely with the IDC on things that are important. But this is part two, because now we put out our blueprint. Now you can see what we think about a lot of the things that the governor's offered, things that we like, things that we don't like, things we'll embrace, things that we'll reject. Part three probably starts tomorrow. And this is part of the budget process, which is statutory and governmental, and it allows people to see what we're going to do in our public conference committees. Everyone has heard the term the mothership. The mothership will be meeting. It's not a Star Trek term for those people who are not listening or don't understand, but in reality, whether it's Senator Marcellino or Senator Laval or Senator Roback, we are going to have public budget conference committees with our colleagues, not only in the Senate Democratic Conference, but with the New York State Assembly. So that's part three. And then there, of course, come the negotiations. Some will be public, some will be in our conferences, but I am confident that by March 31st, that we will have a budget on time. And I hope the governor's listening, because I know Lieutenant Governor, he cares very deeply about that, as do all of my colleagues who are sitting here today. 5 years in a row, we'd like to make it 6. And I do say this because I think it is important. It's very good to get the budget done on time. But in reality, that's the law. So I don't know that we should be getting all kinds of hoo-has and accolades for things that we do which are in compliance with the law. But I'm confident that we can get that done. Having said that, we have a variety of different issues. I want to start in that regard by thanking our floor leader, John DeFrancisco, who does fantastic work on behalf of our conference in this House, and certainly previously served for a number of years as the distinguished chair of the Senate Finance Committee. And I want to thank Senator Kathy Young for her tireless efforts on behalf of the people of the state of New York. And like Senator Klein and like Senator Stewart-Cousins, I want to thank our staff, because we all know we get to stand here, and while we're away for the weekend attending events, our folks are working timeless hours so that we can get here today and make those next steps. So where are our priorities? I think our priorities are pretty straightforward and not inconsistent with what we've advocated for a long time. So we supported the property tax cap. The genesis of the property tax cap started with people like Ken Laval and others in our conference who have been talking about this for a long time. Saved $7.6 billion for taxpayers over the last 4 years. We extended it last year. That's a good thing. Senator Klein spoke about Senator Avella's bill on a property tax cap for the city of New York. I agree with that and have spoken out on that consistently. That would have saved over $4 billion for the city of New York. And I recognize that there are people from the city of New York, from the delegation, who are uncomfortable with that. But I look at it this way. If it's good for the rest of the state, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be good for the city of New York. That's a discussion that we need to have. Where it goes, I don't know. but it's certainly worthy of discussion. Senator Lanza has passed the bill in that regard before. We also believe that there should be a spending cap at the state level. The Senate has been in the forefront on this issue, and while we are all now talking in painstaking detail about the property tax cap, a lot of our local governments, a lot of our school districts are coming to us saying, it's 0.12% this year. We need relief. We need something from Albany. Well, Albany has lived under the constraints, self-imposed, not statutorily imposed, but self-imposed at 2%. We should be having a robust discussion on what the value is around that. We have passed a separate bill on the property tax cap being permanent. We will do so again. That is one of our top priorities. Tax relief. The governor has a number of things in his budget that are laudable and yet problematic. I don't know about you, but I like the STAR program. And I'm pretty sure my constituents and everyone's constituents, by and large in this room, they like the STAR program. I know Senator Laval has been outspoken on this about senior citizen property taxes for decades. We don't agree with the governor's proposal. We don't want to change the nature of the program. It's well over $3 billion. That's tax relief for everyone and primarily for our seniors. So we disagree with the governor on that. We disagree about things like rebate checks, and we'll have discussions about that. We should be trying to find every way conceivable to provide tax relief for New Yorkers, no matter what the sector may be. So in that vein, we put out a tax proposal last week, which many of you heard about, 25 by 25. We want to reduce middle-class taxes by 25% by 2025. Phased in, fiscally and prudently responsible. That's number one. Number two, Senator Farley talked about eliminating some of the tax on private pensions from $20,000 to $40,000. That'll help 377,000 senior citizens in the state of New York save an average of $361 million. That hasn't been raised in years. We have exemptions for the PIT and small business owners, which doesn't matter whose community it may be. It could be David Carlucci, could be George Latimer, it could be Dave Valesky. The reality is that small business is the backbone of our economy. Phased in properly, that's about $500 million. So we're focusing on tax relief. I forgot, on the 25 by 25, that's about $1.5 billion. We make some estate tax changes for agricultural community, that's another $210 million. So our priorities are in sync with what we're hearing from our constituents. And I'll juxtapose that with what the New York State Assembly has advocated, and they have every right to do so, but we don't have to agree. They say they want to cut taxes in some area, but they're actually talking about raising taxes. At this time and juncture, we just don't think that's a good idea. So let's shift to other parts of the budget. I want to thank and compliment Senator Patty Ritchie, Chair of the Agriculture Committee, and I'm going to use this as a quick backdrop, and all of you know this, particularly people who've been here for a little while. We're now in what is probably fairly and loosely described as the budget dance. And in reality, a lot of what we're advocating, and our finance staff knows this very well, we're advocating for a lot of restorations. I think it's about $270 million in restorations to things that are near and dear to everybody in this House. Not just Republican, not just Democrat, but to all of our members, and I get it. We all get it. The executive comes out and throws some things out, and we have to buy it back at the negotiating table, and that's fine. At the end of the day, if we're doing good things for people across the state of New York, so be it. So let's talk about education. I am very confident and comfortable saying, having chaired the Education Committee for 5 years and now working very closely with Senator Marcelino, who chairs our committee, the New York State Senate Republican Conference has been out front on the elimination of the GEA from the get-go. We didn't support it at its inception. We have been pushing and pushing and pushing, and yes, pushing to make sure we get rid of it. We have advocated in our One House proposal this year that that will be eliminated, which is very good for taxpayers all across the state of New York. And much to the consternation of many of our colleagues, we had, I shouldn't say much to our consternation, but we have roughly over 7% increase in aid to education. All of you know when we do that, it makes it harder to fund transportation or the environment or healthcare. But in reality, when you talk about property taxes, quality education, and things of that nature, getting rid of the GEA, providing record funding for increases in aid to education should be our primary obligation. We have money for charter schools, Equally as important, we have money for non-public schools for issues of public safety, which we believe to be of paramount concern. And let me shift gears to my colleague slightly to my right physically, but not certainly governmentally, and that's Senator Ken LaValle. You talk about a protector and the quintessential dog on a bone in terms of college affordability, access, opportunity. All of us care about this. I think what we've offered in this budget in terms of TAP, tuition credits, and giving money to SUNY to offset any potential tuition increase, that goes to middle-class, hard-working families across the state of New York. And we disagree with the executive about funding taxpayer-funded tuition for illegal immigrants. That $27 million we feel is more appropriately spent on behalf of the people who are here, struggling, who are here legally, and all those things are important. On top of that, there are a number of things that Senator Hannan has worked on in conjunction with our colleagues in the area of health care. A lot of valuable restorations. We have money for domestic violence registry. That is significantly important for women all across the state of New York in particular. And let me single out not only Senator Ort, Senator Murphy, Senator Rakshar for their efforts on behalf of opioid addiction and heroin. And every one of us knows this. No matter where you hail from, this is a huge, huge problem in the state of New York. We put $167 million in this budget for a variety of programs that are important to the children and young adults on so many different levels. Treatment, prevention, law enforcement, and we will have many more discussions in terms of what those things are and how we should be moving ahead. I mentioned agriculture early. Let me just touch on two things very quickly, and then, Madam President, I will sit down. We have had discussions about ethics, and they are discussions that need to take place. But we have to go into painstaking detail, and I'll just reiterate that not only by House rule, but by statute, the New York State Senate has passed legislation for term limits for leaders, again, in the House rules and in statute. We also passed a bill last year, which was not passed by the Assembly, creates some consternation, I get it, but it was agreed upon in terms of pension forfeiture. So I am comfortable that the New York State Senate has taken great strides to address these issues quite seriously, and that as we get into the throes of the budget, we're going to be talking a lot about money. There are certain things that may come outside the budget, like that, maybe issues like mayoral control, because Senator Marcellino and my colleagues want to have full hearings on those types of discussions. And I'll close on this because you know I'm all a pain in the neck about this, and if I am, I don't care. Everyone will get used to it. I got the green bracelet on. Madam President, you have it on a lovely green dress today, presiding over the New York State Senate. Senator Hannan has properly informed me that there's approximately $1 million in the budget to do things on behalf of organ donation in the state of New York. I want to raise awareness. I want to work with my colleagues, whatever we can do to make our citizens' lives better and get out of dead last, being number 50 in the nation. If we can do it in the budget, great. But every time we talk about it, the feedback we get is extraordinary. So, Madam President, I thank you very much for your patience and your indulgence. Thank you.
Mr. Floor Leader.